Well, hello, Internet. It's nice to see you guys again. I think it's been almost 12 days, 11 hours, or 11 days and some hours since I posted the last video. And those of you who follow along regularly and have for the last, gosh, now it's going on 3 years since I started doing these videos. I think, or is it 2 years? I'll have to check. Anyway, those of you that regularly follow along, you know that there's a cycle to things. Whenever I'm on treatment or having procedures or surgeries or whatever, I tend to post kind of a lot just to keep you up to date. But then, the last couple of years out of my entire 3-year and almost 7-month journey with cancer, I have had some periods of 6, 7, and 8 months between treatments, between procedures. I'm very fortunate that way that I have been able to have quite a bit of downtime. But what I've learned is that sometimes the in-between periods are difficult in their own ways. When I'm in the middle of treatment that goes like every 2 weeks for a few months, or procedures or planning for procedures or pre-ops and appointments before procedures, it just kind of keeps me busy and occupied. And I'm running into a situation the last couple of weeks where I'm noticing how restless I can be when I'm in these in-between stages. As many of you know, if you saw my last video, I did a 2-week camping adventure out to the Northern Rockies. I went as far as Western Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming. And I had a great time, and I did the things that I love to do, and I reveled in just the gratitude of having the energy to be at 8,000 or 9,000 feet, high altitude, not so much oxygen, and yet I had recovered enough from my last treatment schedule that I was able to deal with that and not have any problems. In fact, I almost feel exhilarated. I lived in northern India, the Himalayas of North India, for almost 20 years. I was going back and forth between Minnesota and other parts of the United States, including Hawaii. But the vast majority of the time between about 2000 and 2020, I was in the Himalayas of North India, and I lived at an elevation pretty similar to Colorado Springs, like around 6,500 feet or so. So I think, that is what acclimated me and gave me a biochemistry, whatever you want to call it, that adapts very well to altitude. And I feel so good when I'm at altitude. Anyway, the last 2 weeks I've been back in the lowlands of Minnesota, which is about 800 or 900 feet above sea level. And I did have a couple of doctor's appointments, just a checkup in between the end of my last treatment and my next set of scans, just to check labs. And I can tell you everything is looking fine. I had a meeting with my local oncologist, and he was very positive about my situation. So again, it's one of those periods where everything is okay, and I'm not having to get blood drawn and get chemicals pumped into my body. And I should be happy about that, right? But I find myself being restless, and I'm trying to figure out what it is. I'm struggling, and I don't know. I've talked about this a little bit before, but I think a lot of it is, I call it the in-between syndrome. I want to be free to live my life. And yet I don't feel like I'm really living my life. I'm just sort of marking time in between the last treatment and what is sure to be the next set of treatments. And it's a very short period of time. Typically, at the least, maybe 3 months, at the most, maybe 7 or 8 months. And I've been through this several times, and I just find that it's challenging to live my life in these chunks. And you guys that have watched my videos, I've talked plenty about all this. I cannot stand to complain. I cannot stand to gripe and whine, because life is a challenge for everybody. And each one of us has a separate sort of set of circumstances that are very challenging for us. For some of us, it's kids, and problems with kids, or problems with teenagers and young adults. Some of us, it's job stress and issues with careers and finances and bills and not being able to afford the lifestyle that we want, and not feeling like we're achieving our goals and our dreams, either as far as our careers or our finances. For other people, it is having elderly parents who are suffering and in decline, and that takes time and energy. And then again, others of us have our own personal health issues, whether it's diabetes or cancer or heart failure, or good grief, any number of other, I don't have to list them all because we've all got them. You've all got them going on in your family. Anyway, the point is, life is just difficult. It is. And, we go on our vacations and we post on Instagram and we project this sense that everything is great. But I've been around the block enough to know that we all have challenges and struggles and conflicts and things in our lives that are difficult to navigate. So, anyway, I say all that to emphasize the fact that I have always had the attitude that, my gosh, stage 4 colon cancer sucks. That is not anything that anybody would want. But guess what? There's all kinds of things in life that are also difficult for people to deal with, and that cause them not to be able to be on a permanent dreamscape, sense of euphoria. And that's not what I'm chasing, and I know that's not what you're chasing either, but I know we all seek peace and contentment. And maybe that is, the big lesson here. I read the Bible pretty much every day, or I try to, and when I finish, I go back and I start over again. So I'm constantly like cycling through scripture, and I just ran across the place where Paul talks about learning to be content in all situations, whether in plenty or in want. And that is such a well-known little piece of scripture. We all know it. It's kind of like when Jesus says, in this world you shall have trouble. Okay. How many of us aren't aware of that scripture and aren't aware of the truth to that? But anyway, this was one of those moments where the scripture, where Paul says, whether I am in plenty, whether I have enough, more than enough, or whether I am deficient and deprived and suffering and uncomfortable and sick, either or, whether I'm living the high life or the low life, I have learned to be content. And that's all I wanted to say in this video, is just, it doesn't matter if you have stage 4 cancer. It doesn't matter if you have out of control kids or a career / financial situations that are stressing you out, somehow we must learn to be content. We all deal with loss, we all deal with disappointment, but then we also all deal with joy and excitement, in glimmers and glimpses. And during this in-between time, this summer, when I am trying to enjoy myself, but I'm also trying to be realistic about what's ahead and trying to prepare for that, and also just trying to live life in the context of my own family and friends, I am trying to work on learning to be content. And that's what I got for you. Thanks for watching.